Hello everyone, the December review here. We're just a few short weeks away from the return of And Just Like That, as Season 3 is set to debut on HBO Max on May 29th. So I thought it would be an interesting idea to start up the old DeLorean, get it to 88 miles per hour and head back in time to look back at the first two seasons presented in their own continuous video. Season 1 debuted in December of 2021, and at the time it was expected to possibly be a one-off event that would bookend the franchise. Well, after becoming HBO Max's most watched series, Season 2 was announced and debuted in June of 2023. There's some mixed reactions to Season 1, to put it mildly. The loudest voice was pretty angry over the direction of the series, specifically Miranda's character, and the wrecking ball she threw down in pretty much every aspect of her life. And that of course included Che, a new character who became the antagonist in many viewers' eyes. Season 1 went with a more dramatic storyline, pulling back on the humor SATC was known for and instead focusing in on the more personal journeys of the characters. Of course, we did have Anthony, played pitch perfect by Mario Cantone, to keep the funny train moving along when he popped in during Season 1. But those dissenting voices were heard, and for Season 2 there was a bit of a tone shift. AJLT is still more dramatic than SATC, but that full-scale life destruction was seemingly over, and the series had a bit of a lighter and at times spicier journey that longtime fans were familiar with. So here are the December reviews recaps for Season 2. All rolled together if anyone wants to catch up before the next season. Disclaimer here, if I thought I was having a bad hair year in Season 1, I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking here in Season 2. I'm gonna have to step up my game before Season 3 drops. It's not crazy, it's Valentino. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with Season 2 of And Just Like That. It's hard to believe that it's been a year already since the return of SATC, and the cast is back for the continuing adventures.
Nice! That's us. Yeah.
Some spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show, only on HBO and the new Max streaming app. There are a total of 11 episodes in the new season, with the first 2 out now, and the rest will be released every Thursday through the summer. I've spent a lot of time in previous videos exploring a lot of the backstory on how we have arrived here in the series. The plot for Season 1 was pretty devastating overall, with the loss of some major characters both on and off screen. Coupled with some pretty big changes for most of the cast, Season 1 went for a slightly different tone than the SATC series, showcasing a different side of its characters and the city. For the second season, we kicked things off just 3 weeks since we last saw Carrie and Franklin, her podcast producer, on the elevator. They have started up what they call a Thursday's relationship, hanging out after each podcast show. Franklin may just want to kick their relationship up a few notches, but Carrie seems content on how things stand currently. Full cast is mostly all invited to the Met Gala, so we spent a lot of time in preparation for the event. From wardrobes to +1s and rides, the Met is a big narrative throughout the first episode. For Charlotte, that means being her usual neurotic self while balancing her family and social worlds. Well, she had planned to take Anthony, but things got shifted around when Harry decides that he wants to go. This doesn't end very well for the couple. Miranda is out in LA with Che as they are in full swing on Che's new TV show. They even have Tony Danza in the cast, whose presence provides some well-done comedic moments. Miranda is also in full overanalyze mode with her relationship, ever worried that Che isn't that into things anymore. This pops up a few times in these early episodes. So far, proves to be Miranda worrying too much. And the rest of our expanded cast is back with Seema. Well, she can't quite find the right fit in her new potential relationship, while Naya is convinced it's time to end hers, and the Wexleys get some great acted extended time showcasing the strain on their very busy schedule. Right off the bat, I noticed that the tone for Season 2 has changed. The dialogue flows a bit more, while the stakes are mostly considerably lower than at this point last year. There isn't a big, no pun intended, shocking scene to set things up. This feels a bit more in line with the original SATC narrative than before, albeit with where our new cast is now. Season 1 went full throttle at times, circumventing expectations. Carrie, who is usually the show's light, was covered in gray, mourning her loss, which casted a large shadow on her world. This was offset with at times larger-than-life co-stars in the form of Che or the podcast team. In these 2 episodes, that structure feels more centered, as the majority of the on-screen characters feel dialed back a bit, allowing for more of a realistic conversation to be had. That also shows up behind the lens as Michael Patrick King directs us with a steady, more polished frame. One where the color palette feels crisp and with confidence. There's a noticeable shift in the screen presence of our characters, one that's more assured and with purpose. While the overall tone was closer at times to SATC, it mostly felt like a drama in its delivery, sprinkling in some funny lines to keep things going, led once again by the brilliant Mario Cantone as Anthony, who's on quite the comedic winning streak in this series.
Best consultation ever.
We don't get a Samantha text just yet, but we know that it's not too far behind. Charlotte does do a name drop, though. There was an interesting line where Carrie mentioned Stanford, which seems like his character is still with us in spirit, which I thought was a poignant moment. So things are looking okay for most of our crew to kick things off. There are some pretty big spoilers on some things that happen here as the season rolls along that's already out, but it seems like all of the predictions that I got wrong for Season 1, well, they just might have needed a year to get here, but we'll cross that bridge as we get to them. So Carrie is content. Charlotte is balanced, though I worry about her and Harry as there could be some potential for a rocky stretch ahead. And Miranda is sort of managing to fit in on the West Coast, minus the cell phone, at least for now. As Carrie said back in the finale of Season 4, after all, seasons change. So do cities. People come into your life and people go. Well, for our leads, we are reintroduced to their seemingly content lives, but just around the corner, a new spark or an old flame is ready to shine. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with the next installment of And Just Like That. Spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show only on HBO and the Max streaming app. Well, another week has gone by, and with it brings the 3rd episode of Season 2. I wanted to mention that this new season corresponds with the 25th anniversary of SATC, so it's fitting we get all new episodes along with some pretty interesting callbacks already, with a few more waiting down the line, all of which helps celebrate the quarter-century mark of the franchise. For the 3rd episode, I wanted to focus in on 2 of the more main storylines, as here we have Carrie beginning work on her audio recording for her most recent book. Its mere idea is enough for Carrie to contend with, but by the time that she has to read Chapter 3, of which covers her finding Big last season, well, the emotions over reliving that situation proves to be too much to take. So she fakes illness in hopes of the publisher recasting the part, but it only delays the inevitable, and Carrie must face down her recent past. I mentioned in the last video for the first 2 episodes that there felt to be a marked tone shift in the season. Sure, Season 1 kicked off with a pretty somber event, but with more impactful scenarios out of the way. So far, here it seems that we are watching a straight drama series, intercut with some lighthearted lines and subjects, and is proving to be a very effective shift as the show feels much more balanced in terms of what we've come to expect from the SATC universe, and I say that as a fan of the first season. Prime example is the overwhelming grief that engulfs Carrie as she tries to read her book. Her unsure feelings eventually give way to full-blown panic attack in the studio until her flight or fight eventually wins out as she tries to avoid the situation altogether. I'm not sure who played the main producer in the studio, but his small role was excellent, knowing the moment and knowing the right way to help steer Carrie through the obvious distress of the book read. It's a standout moment. The ensuing conversations had with Seema and others over the ordeal are measured and sympathetic. Gone, It's last season's almost self-centered emotions, of which were justified at the time, but now Carrie can take some solace as this next phase of life brings with it a less acute emotional bubble, and more confidence in handling the waves, even if she did try to avoid them. With the third SATC movie never finding its way, Season 1 in some respects, and a bit in hindsight, took some of those ideas and tried to strike the right footing between the past and present. That approach worked for me, but we've hit a different level so far in Season 2. One which very much feels like AJLT and not needing to SATC things just because you can. Carrie gets some excellent moments in the third episode, mostly by accepting her world and trying to fight through an emotional storm. As a viewer, it was compelling television. The other major storyline finds Che and Miranda on day one of filming Che's TV show. There's already a bit of anxiety between the two, as Che is focused on the show and Miranda is trying to fit in and be helpful in any corner she can. There's a few setup scenes to the filming. First, Miranda helps Che run some new lines, and then she gets some bad news from Brady as the show is about to begin. All of this is surrounded by the trouble she is having with her new cell phone. Miranda lies about having her phone on her as she enters the studio because she is expecting a callback from Brady, who is in hysterics. Well, the payoff is a pretty intense few minutes. As Miranda and a full audience watch the show's taping, you know that phone is going to go off. It's just a matter of when. And it does, and it's heartbreaking, and it's again compelling television. The couple have it out a bit before Miranda flies back to New York. Things aren't exactly left on a positive note between them, but for both characters, the response is real and has merit. Jay is upset and Miranda is freaked out. Both are understandable. There's also a bit for Miranda getting a tattoo to help signify where she is in life. Its setup is intriguing as she daydreams over the idea of a decent-sized piece of art, but the end result is nuanced, almost blink and you will miss it, but is fitting and perfect for Miranda Hobbs. It's another kudos to the writers. Michael Patrick King is once again behind the camera and has hit another home run in terms of style and mood for the new season. Carrie's panic attack scene is worth mentioning here as the walls literally move in and the words from Carrie's book begin to blur. Water runs while piano notes soundtrack the moment. Time stopped. For the rest of the cast, well, they get a few things to do, but for this video I wanted to focus on the two main storylines. Seema gets some of her best scenes here so far in the series, helping Carrie while also getting her purse stolen. It's the yin and yang of the city, a theme spoken throughout the episode. There's also the return of Lisette, Carrie's neighbor, who has a pop-up event for her jewelry line. When her items are also stolen, Carrie and Lisette share a moment together painting the thought of starting over again. It's another rather effective scene and another stepping stone in this already layered season. With all that said, I am of course enjoying Season 2 so far. It's clear the show has smoothed out some of the rougher edges and is exploring the other side of settling into its new chapters. I'm sure there will be some wacky scenarios ahead, but for 3 episodes in, the more relaxed nature of the series and a few of the Easter eggs have been a pretty great watch so far. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with the next installment of AJLT. Spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. Episode 4 is here, titled Alive, and it features the return of Vogue boss Candice Bergen as Enid Frick. Now no longer working with the publication, or getting so much as a holiday card from Condé Nast it seems, Enid is striking out on her own to create a new online brand and wants Carrie to assist. This triggers Carrie into thinking that it's an invitation to return to her column. However, the idea of the demographic that the brand is about, well, it gives her pause. It's a recurring theme in the series as Carrie tries to work through the reality of the passing years. Meanwhile, Miranda is back in New York and tending to Brady. With this brings the return of Steve, as the family is living together through the process. Che also comes back to the city getting a new apartment, and after Miranda and Carrie stop by for a housewarming drink, well, things get a bit complicated for the couple, as Che's not really ex-husband is there as well. And also on the docket is the 20th wedding anniversary of Lisa Todd and Herbert Wexley, in an extended and rather excellent sequence where everything that can go wrong does. The party is a bit of a bust, but it does line up an interesting career proposal for Charlotte, one that could potentially bring big changes for her down the line. For AJLT Season 2, there's been two pretty big spoilers that have been pretty public for a while. For one, it's the curse of what filming outside in Manhattan can bring, as it's tough to keep certain characters hidden. We are 4 episodes into this 11-spot run and we've had no sign of said spoiler yet, but I feel like we may have got a bit of a window into how Aidan Shaw finds his way back to the city, and it was courtesy of none other than Steve. In a rather quick, almost throwaway line where the Hobbs family was in therapy to help Brady, the conversation turned to Miranda and Steve's own rocky situation. Having the now former couple living in the same house again isn't exactly ideal for anyone. Steve says he can move out for now, saying that he will find a place closer to Scout. Yes, that would be the Scout Bar, the same bar Steve and Aidan owned together way back in the SATC run. Could this rather unassuming mention be the door that brings back Aidan? I couldn't help but wonder. It also gets me thinking where he has been in relationship to the bar since he broke up with Carrie. I assume he wasn't much of a day-to-day operations figure and it was more of a financial interest, which would allow Steve to run the place while Aidan moved on. But we know he's back and we know it's not a short visit either. I've tried to stay away from the more overall spoilers for the show, hoping to focus on each episode as it's released. So I'm not sure if any information is out there regarding his return so far, but for now I'm making up the idea that Steve is involved. There was another pretty cool moment where, during the anniversary party, Lisa's father, Lawrence Todd, stops by and he is played by none other than the legendary Billy D. Williams. Yes, Lando Calrissian himself gets some pretty good screen time. As I mentioned, I thought the entire party scene was excellent. There's plenty of humor, especially in the not-so-subtle reactions from Harry as he tends to Hubert's mother. Pat Bowie needs some recognition here in the tough-as-nails and maddening role. Her presence always adds tension to the situation, and here, by the end of the party, tension and some very direct eye rolls were on the menu. Overall, it was a pretty good episode, with the anniversary being the standout for me. For most of the storylines, things inched a bit more down the line for most of the cast. With Steve back on screen and after a bit of a setup by Che, I'm wondering where we will find Miranda's headspace soon. Charlotte just might find herself back in the art galleries, and the Wexleys just added a whole lot more to their plate in an already impossible schedule with an impulsive announcement of Herbert's comptroller run. And for Carrie Bradshaw, well, she might have a new column to start writing again. She might not. It's unclear if that concept was a reality right now, but in the meantime, she's certainly financially invested with Enid. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with Season 2, Episode 5 of AJLT. As always, spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. We are pretty much at the halfway point in the season, with the 5th chapter debuting in this 11-episode run. So after a quick recap of the episode, let's take a look at where things stand in the AJLT universe and what we might expect in the back half of the season. So Carrie unwittingly stops in a bike lane walking in the city where a man named George has to swerve out of the way, resulting in a bit of a crash landing. Carrie escorts George to urgent care where we find he has a broken wrist. Feeling a bit guilty over the matter, Carrie ends up stopping by his apartment to assist with his very important business work, and the pair hit it off, at least until she realizes George's career might always be the main focus. Meanwhile, Che is enjoying a focus group for their TV show until the topic turns to their character. Che is heartbroken when the attention becomes negative, so much so that it sort of appears that the show itself is no longer a go. It's unclear if that's the case right now, but it is discussed. Miranda, who had already decided to start spending the weekdays at Naya's place earlier due to her and Che's conflicting schedules, is there to try and comfort Che, who decides they just need some space for a while. Charlotte and Harry are at odds with each other when Rock is asked to join Ralph Lauren. Harry dons a pretty impressive wig though at a costume party as well. The wig is a highlight of the season. The Wexleys begin their comptroller run while Seema is iffy about a new relationship. That's pretty much the bullet points for the episode. Pretty standard stuff overall. No major obstacles or narratives to hang on to other than the Che and Miranda timeout. This one was directed by Cynthia Nixon, who also was behind the camera for episode 6 in season 1. Her eye behind the lens was consistent with the previous episodes, framing everything well, with a few interesting, almost POV shots thrown in that were rather effective. As I've mentioned, we're about halfway through the season, and while there has been a noticeable change in the style of the show, adding in a bit more of that SATC vibe to the show with more spice and potential relationships, the emotional level is way down from a year ago as well. Depending on your own personal preference, this is either good or bad. For me, it's a bit of both, as it's nice to see a more content Carrie, but it's at the expense of a more compelling watch. At this point in season 1, we were well into the loss of Big, having a confrontation with Natasha, selling of apartments, and a hip surgery which resulted in a heated and somewhat life-altering exchange between Carrie and Miranda. We haven't really come close to any of that so far in season 2, save for a brief Miranda and Steve moment. Which isn't to say that it's been bad, just different, which many thought was the case already last year. So it's a difficult line to tread for the creative team, who I'm sure have had their own focus groups to contend with. One thing to keep an eye on is the Wexleys. They have had some moments of extended screen time so far, and it's been another highlight in the season. I'm not sure how much of that will continue, but we could be looking at a potential spin-off for the family in my eyes. And we need more Anthony. Looking ahead at next week's trailer, Aiden's name is brought up. Seems it will be part of 5 episodes in total, so I would expect a full reunion in 2 weeks with episode 7. With all the history between the two, it will be interesting to see where Aiden is now in life, and how the years spent apart have formulated into the present. The next one will kickstart that conversation, and after that, well, maybe the emotional spark that's been just a bit missing for me will return. Well, Miranda just had a day. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with Season 2, Episode 6 of And Just Like That. As always, spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. We're just a few days removed from my last video where I was talking about bringing some of that emotional drama that was so abundant in Season 1 over to these new episodes. And it didn't take long for that to happen. Getting right down to it, Miranda asks Steve how the moving out process is going, and unleashes a much needed heated conversation between the two. Steve says that he isn't moving out, emphatically recounting how much work that he put into the house, while Miranda reminds him whose name is on the mortgage. Miranda is left devastated after Steve goes all in, and the pair eventually try and let cooler heads prevail, until a moment later she finds out that Steve has been seeing someone and the conversation is over. That would be enough to contend with in a single episode on its own for Miranda, but upon arriving back at Che's new place, they very quickly let Miranda know that it's not working anymore, and Che and Miranda break up. It's a flurry of emotional storyline disaster for Miranda, and the whole process I thought was done very well. The outburst from Steve was realistic, as he really hasn't had a moment to unwind his hurt feelings over Miranda leaving him. When she found out that Steve was seeing someone else, I'm sure most viewers thought, like me, it shouldn't be a big deal considering Miranda left Steve for Che, but it's also understandable that she would be taken off guard by the timing of finding out. It's tough to predict where this all goes, but Miranda has effectively been brought back to level 0, officially single and living at Naya's place. The usually tough-as-nails character who has been through countless off-brand scenarios so far in AJLT finds herself completely starting over. One interesting note is the use of the overhead shot used for both the Steve and Che scenes. It was pulled directly from the first SATC movie when Steve and Miranda had to go through those relationship waves. That wasn't the only nod to previous things in the SATC universe. This season has already thrown a bunch of different Easter eggs around the screen, and if a duplicate camera angle wasn't enough, well, guess who breaks a laptop, only this time doesn't go into meltdown mode. While on a Zoom interview that wasn't going well to promote her new book, Carrie's device magically flies off the makeshift stand that she created. This ends the interview, but astute fans will remember the last time a scenario like this happened and who it happened with. It was a rough go for Aiden and Carrie back then, and while she takes this much better than before, Aiden's name is mentioned here along with the fact that he is now divorced, sold off his company for a good amount of money, and lives in Virginia. This is discussed while the cast is out for dinner together and the subject of exes come up. Not to be outdone in the memory lane department, Charlotte even mentions Trey. That was unexpected and certainly adds to the throwback vibe that the season is going for. Said conversation sparks Carrie to type up an email to Aiden to say hello, but it goes unsent. At first. Meanwhile, she's involved with being the keynote speaker for WidowCon. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. She's there to promote her book and share her story. She enlists Che to go with her, who is dreading the thought of leaving the house. The day of the event brings with it a bomb cyclone storm, leaving New York in a foot of snow. But the show must go on as a few of the cast members fearlessly walk through the great blizzard in grand fashion. The episode was once again directed by Cynthia Nixon, who got a bit more to work with as far as the locales go this time. With the mega storm backdrop, the episode really captured a unique moment of winter and the contrast of the characters determined to get through the city. Lisa Todd Wexley shines again here as the storm tries to interrupt her speaking engagement at the Museum of Modern Art. There's a bit of a back and forth between her and Herbert early on as the couple tries to support each other's long list of commitments. There's a particularly excellent moment here when Herbert stops by the event surprising Lisa. The scene is played out with just glances, and it was a heartwarming exchange and proves the couple to be the MVPs of Season 2 so far. It was great work. So overall, there was a lot going on in Episode 6. Miranda breaks up with Che and with Steve again. Charlotte's home life continues to create chaos, and for Carrie, well, she ends up sending that email to Aiden at the end. Carrie and Aiden are officially here, again. Will their history, baggage, and now years apart culminate with the pair finally meeting on familiar terms? With 5 episodes left, we will soon get that answer. Oh, and Charlotte mentioned Trey. Still amazed by this. We're on the same page. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with And Just Like That Season 2, Episode 7. As always, spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. Well, the moment that we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. The concept was first brought to our attention for Season 1, but it never happened. Now, 7 episodes into Season 2, and the reunion of all reunions has finally taken place. Yes, I am of course talking about Anthony meeting Drew Barrymore. Okay, so that wasn't it, though that was pretty funny. I of course speak of the 13 years in the making return of Aidan Shaw. John Corbett was on record as saying that he was not only down for reviving the role for the first season, but also said that he was in it. for multiple episodes. It never happened, but much to the chagrin of the fans, I suppose that's all behind us now with the actual return of the character. The setup began in the previous episode while the crew was out having dinner. The subject of exes came up and Carrie was asked about Aiden. This led to Carrie sending him an email at the end of the show. An email that quickly went answered as the pair agreed to meet for dinner. Oh, and it happens to be Valentine's Day. February 14th happens to be this episode's title, and it featured all of the main and extended cast's various plans for the holiday. News of Aiden returning broke months ago, so while the element of surprise was taken away, the way it actually played out I thought was very well written, a bit clever, and complete with not one but two mini twists that I didn't see coming, all of which allowed the scenes that they had together to really resonate with the audience. Swerve number one involved the actual restaurant where they were to meet at. When Carrie arrived, she waited and waited and waited some more and even forgot to charge her phone, which added to the tension and possibility that she was stood up. But it turns out that there was another restaurant right next door where Aiden was in fact waiting, thinking that he may have been left to wonder if he was let down as well. The pair finally see each other outside on the street between the restaurants, and it was quite an emotional moment for the twice former couple. Things seem to be going rather well. So well that they find themselves taking a cab back to Carrie's place after dinner. But when Aiden realizes that she still lives in the same apartment from all those years ago, he hesitates, refusing to go inside where for him there are only bad memories. So swerve number two. I must say this was an interesting path to choose, as on the surface it doesn't seem that the apartment should be such a deal breaker considering the amount of years that have passed since those days. But taking a moment to reflect on it, Aiden spells it out quite well, as their relationship wasn't exactly a smooth ride considering the presence of Big and what that did to their world. So the rekindling seemed to be short-lived until Aiden said that there was plenty of hotels in the city. So the pair are officially back and clearly have a few things to patch up. I guess this shouldn't be a surprise since their relationship has always brought with it a bit of tension in regards to who and what the other person can be for them. Aiden was always pretty straightforward with Carrie in regards to his own expectations, and Carrie wanted to make it work. She tried to quit smoking and couldn't quit Big. After this one episode, it seems like Carrie is in a much better position to try again, but clearly some of the hurt feelings linger for Aiden. Will this third time be the charm? I couldn't help but wonder. For the rest of the cast, celebrating Valentine's Day proved to be difficult in its own ways. Charlotte has a particularly interesting evening when she eats a special brownie that Lily's friend brought over. While waiting for dinner, Harry and her think she might be having a medical emergency, and Charlotte finds herself in an ambulance going straight to the hospital. It must be noted that in this scary and frantic scene, she has enough wherewithal to request that Carrie picks out her outfit in case the worst happens. It's too funny. But she's fine, and the end result is her realization that she needs to spend more time on herself and is ready to take that offer to get back to the art galleries, which is pretty cool overall. AJLT has spent most of Charlotte's time when she's not going full crazy on the tennis court in a perpetual worry zone over her home life. The characters felt a bit of a caricature in terms of amping up the neurotic side of the role. Hopefully this change can bring a more centered Charlotte, or most likely just add to all the craziness. Miranda finds herself on a first date with Amelia, an audiobook reader who she has admired for a while. She is smitten when they meet and set up Valentine's Day dinner, which quickly devolves into a less than expected romantic evening, as Amelia isn't quite on the same page. Miranda takes a moment to dash away from the situation, one that felt very much like watching the earlier episodes of SATC. A fact that even Miranda kind of relates when it dawns on her that she can just leave. Lisa and Herbert head out for dinner as well, but for Lisa the home life is particularly worrisome as Henry's in a new relationship. And Naya decides to stay in, most likely the sanest decision for anyone that evening. And for Anthony, well, he gets that spot on the Drew Barrymore show, and the result has his bakery orders going through the roof. So overall, it was the episode we've all been waiting for, the return of Carrie and Aiden. I must say it felt like it would be way smoother on day one than it was. Carrie has progressed to be in a much more aware position as far as handling this relationship, and one would assume Aiden was there as well. But that's not entirely the case. The episode would have been great if it was an instant success between the two and the conflict arrives down the road. But to subvert expectations, it won't even be that easy for the pair. Considering their history, I guess that makes the most sense. Aiden didn't have the easiest road with Carrie, and even with the years apart, he is apparently a bit trepidatious. For the couple, the journey begins again. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with a JLT Season 2, Episode 8. Spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. So Episode 8 is here, and in many ways it may have been my favorite of the season so far. We've seen our cast manage through a lot of the situations that Season 1 brought us, and here it felt like these characters have taken a significant step forward in terms of their current position in the series. In the timeline, about a month or so has passed since the last week, where we saw a slightly reluctant Aiden and a very much ready-to-go Carrie have their long-awaited reunion. Here, that relationship has blossomed into a full-scale romance, as the couple is certainly back together, no doubt about that. Aiden has been traveling back and forth from his family and farm and staying in hotels while in Manhattan. Carrie meets up with Che, who themselves have moved on from the sitcom and Miranda world and is back working at a vet's office. As the hotel life has become a bit cumbersome to Carrie, she asks if she can rent out Che's place, of which they agree. The end result is a rom-com within the show, as we get a prolonged scene of Carrie and Aiden buying new kitchen items for the place in what can only be termed as two people exactly on the same page. The couple effortlessly breeze through the aisles, cracking jokes and being genuinely in the moment. So much so that Carrie has agreed to leave the city and visit the farm, a scenario in SATC that never would have made it past Fifth Avenue years ago. But today, the possibilities between the pair seem almost endless. The rekindled romance is so brimming for Carrie that she openly more than once wonders if Big was a big mistake, and if Aiden was the one all along. A fascinating admission considering the storyline for all these years. But while the couple are enjoying walking on the sunshine, it's not without its detractors. Seema nearly breaks off her friendship with Carrie, because with Aiden back, their Hampton summer run is basically off the table now. Carrie even forgot about it when the pair talked. Seema asked for some space, but came back around by the end of the episode. Miranda as well wondered if they were moving a bit too fast. Carrie seems to be in a much different headspace than ever before in the show's history. It's been a gradual change from small attempts at cooking to a willingness to accept different opinions. This new Carrie has a stronger confidence and a larger empathy viewpoint. Speaking of Miranda, she's back in a bit of her old career, taking on that delayed internship from Season 1. Her resume speaks volumes and positions her to head of the class instantly, much to the chagrin of the more tenured interns. It's great to see the character focused on something so familiar. That old Miranda is back when she's dealing with the specifics of her internship. Her confidence is back as well, relying on her full experience to excel in the position. And if you didn't think we were done mining the past, Charlotte started back at the art gallery. Her journey mostly focused on her fear of being older now and how the years have changed her appearance. She frets along for the majority of the episode, but when she finally arrives for the first morning back, her confidence snaps back instantly, showcasing a rather happy and focused Charlotte. I must mention there was a rather nice moment where she was going through some old photos and pauses on one that had all four of the original cast in it. The camera lingers on it just long enough for the audience. Yes, Samantha is there, planting a bit of the seed for that final episode. It was a nice touch in this excellent moment. Seema also gets some interesting screen time that didn't involve Carrie, as she reluctantly takes on a new client who is foreshadowed to maybe be a good fit for her. The show has spent a lot of Seema's time lamenting her lack of true connection, and she might be getting set up with something a bit more in line with her world. If all this wasn't enough, Anthony as well starts off a new relationship with Giuseppe. So the one main theme here is that word again, confidence. AJLT has spent a lot of time placing its leads into new and different situations to varying degrees of success, but very much in lockstep to evolving the characters and expanding their experience. And that's clear now that the journey has taken them back to more familiar surroundings. Maybe it's just the circular nature of life. Maybe it's a bit of the backlash from Season 1. Maybe it's both, or maybe it's just where these characters need to be for now, again. There's always going to be a new appreciation for something you've left behind, and find herself back at it as the years fall in between. Carrie is back with Aiden, Miranda is sort of back in law, and Charlotte is back in a gallery. It's not a coincidence that this is all at the same time. Looking ahead at the preview for next week, and it's full steam ahead for the show as it begins its home stretch to the end of the season. And this appears to include a big decision by Carrie. Is she going too fast with Aiden, as Miranda asked, or is this the natural progression considering their history together? Was Big the wrong choice all along, or is that revisionist history born from the current situation? We will find out eventually. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with AJLT Season 2, Episode 9. As always, spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. So episode 9 is titled There Goes the Neighborhood, and while also being the title to an excellent Sheryl Crow song, it's where Carrie makes a pretty big decision on her future in what is a pretty great episode overall in the series. Things start off a bit relaxed with Carrie and Aiden already back from visiting the farm, but things pick up fairly quickly as pretty much every main character has multiple prolonged scenes involving their varying levels of narrative. So much happens here, but I want to start off with how this episode ends, or really, the final few scenes with Carrie and Aiden. She decides to sell her apartment again, but this time she's found the perfect new place for not just her and Aiden, but down the road for Aiden's family as well. This is pretty monumental in the SATC world. Her apartment has been almost as much of a character as anything else over the years. Through good times and bad, reconstructions, move-outs, and casual house hunting, 245 East 73rd Street has always been home base. Yes, Carrie did move on briefly for an episode last season, but considering the circumstances after losing her husband, the concept didn't feel like such a polarizing experience. Plus, it didn't last very long. But by the end of things here, Carrie has already agreed to buy the new place. There really does go the neighborhood. And we get here in a pretty interesting way. First off, the obvious situation with Aiden never wanting to set foot in there again is an issue. One Carrie openly admits to this week, so that's clearly weighing on her mind. Then Che's place essentially kicks the couple out after they hit their 30-day visitor limit. So as the hotels have run their course, Che's place is off the table. We find ourselves at a crossroads. Things get even more pronounced when Aiden's ex-wife Kathy reaches out for an afternoon get-together. The slightly awkward meetup gets an exclamation point when Kathy essentially tells Carrie not to hurt Aiden again. Kathy is played by Rosemarie DeWitt, who, if you haven't seen it, is also in the monumentally excellent Rachel Getting Married. I can't recommend that film enough. I have a review up on the channel for it if you are so inclined to check it out. It's near perfect movie making. So it's great to see her here as well. Hopefully it's a character that pops up on screen again down the road. So all of this leads into the episode's big finale after Carrie lets Aiden know what she said. Aiden goes all Aiden and tells Carrie that she will hurt him again and he will hurt her. But it's not out of spite, but part of life. This time it's different, and this time they are much more equipped for handling the adversity. And just like that, Carrie has a new home. But right at the end here, the show does retract just a little bit. Carrie bumps into her neighbor Lisette, who mentions that she may be losing her sublet on her apartment. Nothing is said outright yet, but I'm willing to bet that Carrie keeps her place and just rents it out to her. I mean, I'm all in favor of a new home, but ditching that apartment? Let's not get crazy here, AJLT. The show did a great job setting up this next chapter for the couple. Throughout, it really felt like these are some real permanent changes for Carrie and, by effect, the entire show. And it is. Her return with Aiden has truly brought out a completely new side of the character. But like I said, there were plenty of other things of note here as well. So let's get down to the bullet points of all the shenanigans. Anthony, or Tony now as he is to be called, tries to break things off with Giuseppe in fear that he was just being used, but the pair soldier on as they clear the air. Naya apparently found Tinder, much to Miranda's chagrin, and seems to be stepping out a bit after the end of her last relationship, until she sees an Instagram post of her ex starting a family. It's a bit of a sad moment for Naya, and one I am sure will be a catalyst going forward. Herbert has a big speaking engagement which is being held at Charlotte and Harry's place. The latter is also the event planner, but LTW seems to have finally burned herself out with her crazy schedule that she's falling asleep randomly and ends up being really late to the proceedings. After a rather amusing back and forth bickering session, Lisa tells Herbert that she's expecting, so congrats to the family as their world takes yet another direction. Jay decides to start getting back into the stand-up world after meeting a fan at the vet's office. They fib a bit and say that they have got some shows coming up and decides to actually get something going. I really like where Jay has landed in this season. The character was certainly a lightning rod for season 1, which seemed a bit unfair to me as I never understood the vitriol for the role, but they were trying out new things. But that's just my opinion. The writers have gone out of their way to make the character a bit more grounded, and now with some time spent away from Miranda, both of them have settled into a much less chaotic period. But both are still searching for the next steps. Though looking at the preview for next week, that might get a bit complicated again. Seema starts to get a bit frustrated with Ravi, who can't seem to commit to any of the new apartments that she's shown him. He admits it's because he's been enjoying the time spent with her, and the pair start their new relationship. There's a great scene where Seema, Ravi, Carrie, and Aiden all meet up for dinner, and Aiden is starstruck by the director. John Corbett has tweaked just enough of the characters so far where Aiden seems as confident as ever, well, except for that whole apartment thing. And it's fun to see him fawn over Ravi in a bit of a throwback to earlier seasons. And Miranda asks Charlotte if Lily could meet up with Brady to encourage him to get back on the scholastic track. Only they may have started up a relationship instead. This sets Charlotte off into full-scale Code Red Charlotte mode. And it ends with a great scene involving Anthony and Giuseppe in a room together. It's funny stuff. So yes, things are all over the place for our AJLT friends, but it really feels like things are coming together quite well for the most part. Episode 9 really had a nice second half with Carrie and Aiden taking center stage. Their history together is clear to them and everyone they know. And it's also a catalyst helping them in the present and clearly shaping the future. I have a feeling I know where this season is going to go now for the big grand finale. With only 2 episodes left, it doesn't seem like a stretch that the couple might make that ultimate commitment to each other. One that would be enough to champion a phone call from an old friend who hasn't been around Manhattan for a while. And if that's the case, we could be setting things up for a truly final conclusion in just 2 weeks. But I'm getting way ahead of things here. I have to get used to calling Anthony Tony before anything else right now. Okay, so Miranda just mentioned Skipper. That's crazy. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with AJLT Season 2, Episode 10. This penultimate moment has arrived, and for fans of the series, there is quite a lot to discuss, so as always, spoilers are ahead. So make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. So just last week, we left off in a happy zone with Carrie and Aiden taking a pretty big step together, and with the majority of the rest of the cast finding their groove as well, signaling that maybe these final 2 episodes will coast into Pleasantville. Well, forget all that now, because the series decided to throw a wrench into the proceedings pretty quickly, as everyone is now about to enter meltdown mode with this rather anxiety-inducing 10th episode of the season. Titled The Last Supper Part 1, Appetizer, these 44 minutes or so seriously put conflict straight into the way of our AJLT community and cast some pretty big clouds over many storylines. The episode starts off with Carrie and Aiden visiting Coney Island to meet up with Steve, who has purchased a storefront on the boardwalk and is trying to get everything up and running. It's his way to start a new chapter. If you followed this channel, you may have seen a few shorts that I've put up over the past year or so titled Wildwood Days. Well, having grown up with a boardwalk so prevalent in my life and having owned a storefront in the family as well, Steve's words were quite relatable here in terms of the power that type of location has. There is something to be said for its ability to create nostalgia and peace at the same time. And for Steve, starting over in such a place is fitting in his next step in his narrative. Meanwhile, Carrie wins a raffle that allows her an all-expense-paid meal by a renowned chef at the location of her choosing. She decides it's the perfect swan song for her apartment, which has been 100% sold to Lisette at a rather sizable discount. Aiden opens up as to why he won't go back into Carrie's apartment, and it's because, well, he's afraid he will get mad at her again over the past, and that it was a mistake to be upset with her in the first place. It's a pretty telling moment for the character as Aiden openly says that when he couldn't get her to marry him, he used the apartment expansion next door as the next way to gain some type of long-standing commitment from Carrie. So with the new home on the horizon and years of past grief being let go through conversation, doubt begins to settle in once one of Aiden's sons gets into a car accident. He blames himself for not being there, and while Carrie is obviously understanding of the situation, the episode ends without knowing if Aiden can now commit to going forward. Have to say, I didn't see that coming. I suppose it was naive to think that the series would coast along without conflict, but the reality of the years between when the couple left off until now has finally made its way forward. And there's a pretty emotional moment here between Carrie and Anthony where Carrie lets him know that she has heard from Stanford, who has decided to become a monk, and that he is at total peace, and that he signed over everything in Manhattan to Anthony. With the passing of the beloved Willie Garson in 2021, through his wishes, the show decided to write Stanford off-screen, allowing the character to live on in the SATC world. Here in episode 10, a fond and rather moving moment of remembrance and perhaps a proper goodbye to Stanford was lovingly portrayed between the pair over a Cosmopolitan. Carrie giving a wink while she finishes her drink felt very real and in the moment. While it's not easy to deal with the loss of someone so close, the show created an excellent farewell for the much-missed Willie Garson. For Miranda, well, her career is riding high, but her personal life is still in flux. After coming home to Naya's place, who is in full meltdown mode after receiving an invite from her ex-husband, Naya wishes that she could shut people out the way that Miranda can. A bit of shocking news to Miranda. And this is brought up again throughout when Carrie tells her about Steve's new boardwalk place and is mystified how she hasn't reached out to him. This sparks Miranda to head to Che's first stand-up show since their breakup, and let's just say that it didn't go well for anyone. After just last week mentioning how well I thought that they have handled Che's character this season, Che went right into MCU villain mode territory after eviscerating Miranda in her act. When the former couple have a heated exchange afterwards, Che doesn't relent, driving a deeper wedge between her, Miranda, and the audience. It was an interesting decision considering how well the character was handled right before the act. We watch Che as they go through old stand-up videos of themselves, getting a glimpse of who they used to be, adding some much-needed background to the role. Che is clearly fighting against the struggle of being who they are now and how their world holds on to what they should be. In this context, their rebellion over Miranda and others around them, while upsetting, is understandable. For Charlotte, well, she sells a rather expensive piece of art to Sam Smith and reluctantly agrees to go out with her co-workers to celebrate. This ends up with a very drunk Charlotte having a few words for her family. This moment has been set up with her struggle to have her career and let go of some of her home life responsibilities. Mostly played out for a bit of a laugh here, but it's clear Charlotte is trying to find the right balance between the two. And for Lisa Todd Wexley, she struggles to commit to her career and life changes as well. Only things here are much more serious and are left off in a rather somber way. Once again, the on-the-screen rapport between her and Herbert steals the episode, as the pair's chemistry together is excellent. LTW herself is so well acted throughout this season, it's truly a standout role. Rounding out the cast, we find Anthony at odds with himself over his relationship with Giuseppe, and Seema tells Ravi that she loves him, but fears that she might have stepped out too far too quickly. So the second to last episode of Season 2 brought us many new questions as we get ready for the final act. Pretty much everything is in question right now for the entire cast in terms of what their next steps are in the series. The Stanford moment was a standout and one that should live on forever in the SATC universe. I thought there were some really well put together scenes, including the feud between Miranda and Carrie as she tries to push Miranda into facing some of her recent issues. The conversation between LTW and Herbert, seeing Che look back while trying to write new material, and seeing Harry in his office was a great look. The episode left things very unsettled, which was its intended design, keeping us guessing right up until the final frames. I'm a bit thrown now as to what we can expect as the finale looms. While the season hasn't been perfect, it certainly has been entertaining for me, and with many SATC nods and winks mixed into the next chapter of this series. I'll get into my more overall thoughts once the season officially wraps up. As Carrie said way back in Season 4, Episode 17, maybe the best any of us can do is not quit, play the hand we've been given, and accessorize the outfit that we got. While she may have been talking about shoes at that moment in time, the same thought here can apply to where things are now all these years later. Will Miranda find a way not to shut people out and possibly find something that she's been looking for since AJLT began? And will Charlotte find a balance between her family and career? And after all this time, is it really Aiden and Carrie's moment to ride off into the sunset? Well, with one episode left, I couldn't help but wonder. Hello everyone, the December review here, back again with the grand finale of AJLT Season 2. It's hard to believe that it's already been 2 months since the return of the SATC universe, and here we are again at the end. The good news is that it was announced just this week that Season 3 has been greenlit, so while we say goodbye to this chapter, we do have another to look forward to down the road. As always, spoilers are ahead, so make sure to check out the show streaming on the Max app. So last week brought us the rather anxiety-inducing setup to the big ending. It seemed almost everyone on the show was battling through a difficult situation. This week picks up the morning after, and while some big topics are discussed, the ending goes out mostly on an upbeat note. Since this is titled The Last Supper Part 2, let's start with the main course of Carrie and Aiden. Things started to seem bleak for the now thrice couple as Aiden needed to get home to attend to his son's accident, putting a huge question mark over not just Carrie's new home that she bought with them in mind, but also the entire relationship. And things get answered, kind of, sort of. Not really, but also, yeah, they do. Much like their on-screen romance, this ending isn't exactly clear. So Aiden shows up after Carrie's final apartment dinner and, get this, actually goes inside. After proclaiming multiple times that he wouldn't ever go in there again, he does. And when Carrie asks where his luggage is, it's clear a heavy conversation is about to be had. As fans, we've speculated where this could all lead. Whether you were on Team Big or Team Aiden for all these years, with a new set of circumstances, would this be the time that they get it right, or will this be when Aiden needs to walk away for the first time? Well, he indeed does walk away, citing his need to be home with his family, but there is a catch. It's not over. Carrie just needs to wait 5 years. Seriously, that's a pretty big ask for any circumstances, let alone after just selling your own apartment and buying a new, much larger home for the pair. It's left open-ended as to what will become of this, which allows for major room to speculate where things will be in Season 3. Carrie, while a bit knocked off the rails, stands by her decision to move on from her neighborhood, signaling her character's development. Heck, she even did adopt that kitten, so Carrie's outlook right now, while a bit unsteady with the shakeup, well, it is very much focused in the now, as confident as we've ever seen her. One thing I feel like AJLT has missed the mark on a bit is even though that the individual episodes are longer than SATC, the seasons are much shorter. I feel like there wasn't enough time to dedicate on screen their new relationship and how it all came together so quickly again. Yes, we know their history, so the chemistry is there, but with such a long time in between their last connection, we saw bullet points of them, but it wasn't really elaborated enough. With so many different characters on the show now, along with a few time jumps, this unofficial breakup didn't hit like it could have with more of the day-to-day on-screen shenanigans the original series was able to show. One thing that did hit pretty hard is the meetup between Miranda and Steve. After deciding to stop shutting the past out, Miranda heads out to the boardwalk, never a bad idea, and the pair have a heart-to-heart. It's an excellent scene, and I'm sure one that many fans are happy to see. With all of their chaos that their relationship has had to deal with over the last few years, having them find common ground was great. The biggest spoiler was, of course, one former cast member making a return to this last episode. It's zero secret that Kim Cattrall would be here as Samantha. The only thing was how and why. Which reminds me, let's take a look back at my prediction for Season 2. I predicted way back in my first And Just Like That video that Cattrall would be back. Obviously, it's more hope than reality. But here we go once again for me to go on record and say it will happen in Season 2. I know, it won't. But if by some chance it does, I can use this in a future video and feel cool about myself for about 3 minutes. So it's worth a shot.
You know what? I don't need this.
So here I am today, and clearly do need a haircut, but here to bask in the glory of finally getting a prediction correct. Thank you. Thank you. By having the reveal leaked out so long ago, though, it kind of took away the impact overall. Imagine if no one knew. It was 100% on lockdown. The interwebs would have blown up with the buzz after it just aired. But by word getting out and the subsequent interviews on the subject, it did create an anticipation which would have been lost if it was kept under wraps. I assumed the Samantha phone call was going to happen right at the end, but much to my surprise, it's right in the beginning. It seems that she tried to fly back to Manhattan for the dinner party, but her flight was delayed, so she called to bid farewell to the apartment instead. I will say that it was great to see her, even if we know the circumstances behind the scene. Sure, the cast wasn't there for any of it, and it's just an edited together moment, but that happens way more than we know in films and TV. So blocking out the drama of it all, I really enjoyed seeing Samantha's return, and it was in true Samantha fashion. Hopefully this sparks the potential for another more expanded appearance in the future, but by all accounts this seemed like the final moment. However, did we really even think that this was going to happen in the first place a year ago? So I'm going to continue my prediction game and say that Samantha will be back, full-time no less, for Season 3. I mean, why not, right?
I'm not sure.
Lisa Todd Wexley and Herbert continue to shine here through some rather difficult circumstances. Things get pretty dark, especially during the party scene where the couple have a discussion. Already the season's highlight, here for the finale, Nicole Parker stepped front and center to any conversation regarding possible award nominations for her performance. It's as good as it gets. Charlotte managed to survive her night of drinking and continued her bottom line of needing Harry and the family to make it all work now that she's continued her career. I really thought her finest moments in the season came when trying to find herself a bit through deciding to return back to the gallery. Charlotte was used mostly for the lighter side of the show as her chemistry with Harry is off the charts. But looking back, there was a clear trajectory at play here, one that echoed literally every single cast member on the show. And that's navigating your way from one point to another. You can take both seasons of And Just Like That and see a starting and an end point up till now. Some of the faces and places weren't the main focus, but rather what they meant along the way to help our characters find that next level that they were searching for. Charlotte could have been content continuing to manage her home life, but it was clear something was missing. And when she was confronted with the idea of returning to work, which seemed irrational at first, the mistake of that special brownie of all things allowed an honest reflection for the character to regain the concept of who they were. On the surface, Che was an easy target against the backdrop of Miranda and Steve's breakup. For decades, Miranda was always so sure, and here things were very much in question. Che never stood a chance in the audience's eye as a sympathetic soul, And looking back, maybe they were never meant to be one in the first place. Their relationship was very much the lead into them taking the next step forward. A point very well made here in the finale during their excellent conversation together. And maybe it wasn't so much about Aiden and Carrie as much as what Carrie needed to flourish from the loss of her husband. Aiden just happened to be the one to be there. A familiar spark in an otherwise redundant landscape. Change is scary and usually met with resistance. It's sort of easy to stay in the routine, that way you can try to avoid as much disappointment as possible. You know how if you have two magnets and try to place them together using the same side, their natural force ends up pushing them away. Flip them over and they lockstep once again. That polar resistance was just shown on screen in various ways as our cast worked their way through trying to find their way back together again. I know that's a tough comparison, but it sounded good for a minute there. Overall, I very much enjoyed Season 2 and look forward to the next chapter. During these videos, I've tried to do a basic recap with some thoughts mixed in, and I appreciate everyone who stopped by the channel. There's lots more to dive into regarding this show, so stick around as I'll have a video down the road for my favorite moments of Season 2, along with more predictions and news as the next season begins to take shape, along with more movie and TV show reviews. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll be back with more AJLT in a